Hey my immortal nerds, it really took me a while to understand and test the essences extensively, and finally I can say that I found my favorite build with the new stuff, combining tankiness with damage and providing a full idle control. This build has two modes, combining the best essences from the last 4 seasons into a playstyle that fits your enemies. Follow me through the current meta builds, in-depth guide for my grab build and a hack that gives you 300 armor and armor penetration. There are so many builds out there currently. But what do 99% of them have in common? Shackled Fate and Berserker. Those are still the most powerful items for barbarians. Heavy damage and passive control, just awesome. The best builds out of that combinations I see in-game and in the community posts are: first, we have the idle HotA build. It's a passive HotA build built around the flicker tone, of course, where we take use of the two passive essences we have, so Chains and the Berserker. We do not go with Renatant Rage here, and that's why it has such a huge idle burst. You still have everything to deal damage in the idle while you are stun locked, while you are knockbacked and so on, but you can now fire your HotAs every time because those passive ramp it up very nicely. And you can combine it now with the new shoulder to make you a bit immune to the knockback effects, which gives that build a new way of playstyle. You can move around in the idle a bit, you still get hit, you still get stunned, but your hammer ramps up and it gets you into a killing machine. So what are the perks of it? You're kill focused, you charge your hammer while you're stunned. It is a bit weak versus other barbarians. Of course, you can bring them into the Undying, definitely, but then you're just there because you can't debuff them or anything. Same goes for the Crusaders. So when they are with their immunity, all your hammers will go into nothing and you will have your problems. Same then goes for higher resonance enemies where you do not deal that much damage. Still, it is a very good build. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It's very worth playing it because you can finally kill something and that feels very nice. Next one, Stonewall. It's a new build. I will link you the build guide for that from Indus. Indus did a nice video on that, check it out. It focuses around the pit of Ursus, where you can build that stone wall around you that lasts for 4 seconds or something, where no one can pass. So that build is a lot of fun to play. It's very strategic, it's tactical, you need to know what you do, because what can you gain with it? You have a full utility build. So blocking enemies, blocking the idols, you can catch necromancers and tempers while they try to running away or BKs. You have a lot of utility moves you can do with that build. Plus you get a damage reduction and a damage buff, of course. That's why you can switch it with the Shackled Fate pants, because you get that damage buff now from the walls. It's weak when you don't have damage dealers. When you're alone, this Stonewall will trap you, and when there's no one else to deal damage, it kind of will kill you. So you need to be careful, and you can block your team. So if you have high resonance players that just went back to heal, want to go back to the front line, and they cannot pass you, it gets into a problem. So you really need to know what you do. If you do so, and if you have a nice setup, this build can really win a game. So that's why I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's not as good as the HotA build because you are very dependent on your team. If you go into any clan wars or anything, then this build is really nice, and I would give it 4 to 5 stars. Next we have a passive Cleave. I did a video on that with a tank build, so I will link you that video as well. Check it out. It's a very cool build. What you do here is you have your idle tank. So you go into the idle, you deal a lot of passive damage around that Borrow Might. So you have your Chains, you have your Berserker, and you have the passive Cleave. That gives you a damage buff. So when we look at the perks, we are a meat grinder now. Everything that comes to us dies because we deal so much passive damage. Even if we are stun locked, even if we are knocked back, whatever, we just deal damage. We are in addition a damage support. We give a percentage to our team. Sad side, we do not have any immunity. We don't need it here, but if you want to get out of the idle, you might face issues. and we have less idle control. Means we are there, we can block it, but we cannot actively push it just by surviving the enemies. We cannot push them out or anything. So we have not that much idle control. Still, we can use our chains, but as we do not have immunity, we cannot use them as we please. We might just take the benefit of disturbing the enemy. So 3.5 stars out of 5 for that build. Next one is very well known. It's our strip Spartusk build, focused around the Spartusk helmet, of course, with vortex that debuffs the enemies. This build is still very, very valid, because even if it has a longer cooldown now, you can move tactical and wisely and destroy your enemy by that. If you go into the game and see there's a lot of barbarians or anything, or crusaders, or even just a very strong tempest where you say I need to disturb him somehow, that Spartusk can really help you. Positive side, Barb Killer, we have a double lock, means we can pull with the chains, then use the Spartusk and really keep someone at a defined position. We have a long cooldown now of the Spartusk, which makes it a bit, not that useful as it was before. And we lose a bit of damage because that Spartusk is blocking a spot on the helmet, is blocking a skill slot, which we needed. We have our Undying Rage, we just have 3 skill slots, so yeah, we take a bit of a damage loss. Still, this build is very nice, 4 out of 5 stars in my opinion. So coming from the Spartusk build, we now gain possibilities from the last update. The Spartusk base will get a switchable upgrade. For that, first shortly check out the new essences. On the main head, we have the Skull Mill with the Wrath mode that now lets you transform your Wrath of the Berserker into a Brawler mode, which says that you deal only single target damage, but on every 3rd hit, you will grab the enemy and throw it forward. That means we get kind of a short knockback. By that, we deal an AoE damage in that area and blocking that enemy for a short duration of time. That essence, to be honest, is a nice idea. In combination with the next essence, the helmet that makes your Wrath now gaining 30% attack speed for your primary attack, which sounds pretty fitting. Means you're dashing to the enemy, now you have a very fast primary attack, you can hit him 3 times, then throw him and kind of take him out of the game for a short amount of time. And honestly, that works. If you are just facing one single enemy. As soon as you're facing 2 or 3 enemies, which we normally do because we are close around the idol, then this gets kind of messy. You nearly never get to your 3rd attack, even with that raised attack speed, and the whole idea behind it gets kind of lost. So I'm not sure about this. 3rd essence is the direct diplomacy. It's for the grab, so as soon as you use your grab main hand dashing to the enemy, he gets a armor decrease of 90%, means everyone dealing more damage to that enemy. Yeah, that sounds pretty great as well. But if you think about the meta essences, the chains with the pants combination where you get 20% additional damage, you get 20% additional damage as a beneficial effect. That stuff is not dependent to your enemy's resistance. That means you always have the 3 seconds and even more with the Vithos set. For the chest, that stuff is on your enemy. Means if you have a lower potency, those 3 seconds are instantly cut down to 2 or even 1 second. And he can be immune to it. And he can get clear of any debuffs. There are a lot of possibilities to get rid of this thing. That's why I really don't like those 3 essences. I tested them a lot, but all 3 of them are no-go for me in the current PvP builds. Don't use them in my opinion, they don't bring you the big benefit. Let's check out the next 3 ones. Those are a bit more interesting. We have the Pit of Ursus, so that a stone wall, which we just saw in the wall build, in the Stomp build. This one is pretty cool. You can enhance it with 2 head essences where you get another charge and where you get a bigger circle of that stone wall. That is nice. Tactical build, works pretty good, has nice possibilities. As soon as you are in talk with your teams on any clan activity or anything, this gets pretty cool. Broken Culling, the best essence in my opinion from this patch, which gives our Wrath of the Berserker now a immunity to knockback effect for a very long duration. 5 seconds with Bithus, 7 seconds with any other effects even more. This stuff is really cool. We can now officially get rid of the Terror Helmet. We don't need it anymore. Yes, there are still CC out there, a lot of stunts, a lot of stuff. But this shoulder brings us enough immunity to do our stuff. We don't need more, in my opinion. It's pretty cool. We save a skill. We can put it now to damage or to even better tankiness. This essence is really nice. Last one, the Strangled Wings. The main hand that transforms our grab into a nice dash. That dash is pretty cool because you directly can hit an enemy. You don't need to target. You can't jump past him or anything. You get to that enemy, to that exact location. Even if he has an immunity, you still jump there. Maybe he does not get stunned because it says it's seizing the enemy. It's not a total loss of control in this case. You just grab him in a kind of a knockback effect. So chip is not working. And then you smash it into the ground, knocking back all the other enemies behind it. So you have a nice AoE disrupt skill. You're not really blocking enemies, but you stop whatever they are doing for a short amount of time. That means when someone is casting, he needs to stop shortly. He needs to recast it. He loses a second. So it's nice to annoy enemies as hell. And when you even are able to catch the enemies and ram them into a wall, they get a stun. So then we are talking about total loss of control again, and chip is working. So very nice thing. All 3 of those are very nice. You can use them in PvP and build builds around it. It's worth it, worth your time. So knowing all of this about the new essences, about the other builds, you see that every build just focuses around the 3rd skill beneath the Berserker and the chains. And my best combination is going with the grab, the new main hand. You have seen it in the video here already, and this build is really a 4 out of 5 stars for me, so it is as good as the current HotA build and as good as the current Spartusk build, and it is the Spartusk 2.0, the 2nd version. That means by only changing 2 essences, you get into this build. And this is nice. Before every game you can decide. So why is this build so good? Because you can actively do stun locks on enemies. You can grab them from an idol. You can use your chains to grab them out of it, whatever. You can actively remove someone from the idol. Then you can ram him into a wall, you can stun him, you can then pull him again with the chains and grab him again. You can really stun lock an enemy for a long duration with that push and pull mechanic. Anytime you want, you can push someone out of the idol just by dashing into it, or you can grab it out of him. You can really move a lot of people around, which is pretty funny. So that's why you have a lot of idle control. Combining it with the helmet of the ancestor Stele, and see this as a revival of this helmet, honestly. The ancestor Stele that gives us that 1 second additional undying rage duration, which means 1.5 seconds or 1.7 or something with all of the beneficial effects, and gives us a 10% cooldown reduction with awakenings on the undying rage. That means you really get tanky as hell even without HP. You have your grab, so you can move people around, and what you can do with that easily, anytime you have a wizard that is annoying, you can engage the enemy's damage dealers with that skill easily. So that's pretty cool, because he cannot block you, you don't miss or anything, you just dash to him in a second of time. We have the 4-piece Bithus here to give us a very quick dash. The negative thing on this build is you will get less kills because we are focused on the idol, we are focused about moving the idol, kicking people out, moving them somewhere, dealing some damage. Definitely we do deal damage, but we are never the guy who really chases the enemy or is focused on killing. So less kills but more wins, and this is what we want. So with all of that, let's look at the build overview. We're going with the skills Lacerate, Chains, Wrath, Grab and the Undying, basic stuff. For the essences, Ancestor Stele to make us a tanky, Shackled Fate, Barrier Talons to give us that pull mechanic with the chains and damage bonus. We have the Berserker and the Falling Thunder with the Wrath to give us that great AoE attack, and with the Rending Bite and the Falling Thunder to make our Lacerate deal a bleed damage and to give us that additional 30% damage bonus here when we really primary attack someone. We always have a primary attack when we go with the Strangled Wings, our grab main hand essence, because we dash to the enemies and they are disrupted shortly to give us at least 1 or 2 primary attacks. Sadly, not 3 or 4, otherwise that new Wrath offhand would be really cool now, but it's not giving us that much time to actually deal 3 or more attacks. But still, 1 or 2 landed attacks, guaranteed attacks on an enemy is a huge amount of damage. Then we have the broken Culling, so the shoulder now, the new shoulders to give us the immunity. That means we dash to an enemy and we can actually do something. Not a total loss of control, but at least we survive the knockbacks, and you will see that this will give you a lot of movability in the game. You're faster with the Wrath, you pull enemies, disrupt them so they do not actually cast that fast, and yes, you just deal damage so they are trying to run. That works nicely. For the sets, 4-piece mountbanks to give us tankiness. The 4-piece here is kind of a base set now for nearly every of those builds. And the 4-piece Vithus here to give us the attack speed that make us hit more basic attacks. For the Paragon, we go with the Brawler. Classic, we want to be bigger to survive more and be faster. We want damage reduction and so on. So a standard Paragon tree with the Benefactor in here. Benefactor again. We want to enter the battle fast. That's why we trigger our Wrath initially. That's why we lose our first shield and will get our first real shield after 30 seconds. So normally, when you go into the Undying Rage while you're taking too much damage and then coming back shortly, this second activation will happen around that time. So Benefactor will still help you to often escape battles when the Undying is nearly out, because then normally the 30 seconds are done, you can cast your Wrath, will get that shield. Otherwise the Mountbank saves you very often. We do not have that shoulder Wrath shield anymore, but trust me, being able to move out of the battle is very often more valuable than having that shield. Gems. I will give you a short gem strategy for that or similar builds afterwards. Just basic thing, we want a defensive with the Battle Guard. Crit we want to have with the Royal. With the Pain Clasp, we have our permanent slow here from the Shackled Fate, that's cool. Then attack speed, again, is always nice on that build too. For the Eternal Wrath, Eternal Attributes go for the Wrath AoE. 4 out of 4 would be nice. A lot of passive damage when you pull people to you, grab them and constantly deal that AoE 8 to 10k attack. That's awesome. Try to get that as much as possible. So why is this again a switchable build? It is based on the gems, on the other essences, on the whole setup of reforges and everything of the classic Spartusk build. And when you start a game, check out the enemies roster, check what enemies do you face for a battle, check if you know those guys, if you know this is a powerful barbarian, this is a powerful crusader, and then change those 2 essences, the helmet and the main hand, to the stuff you need. Do you think you need Spartusk? Then go with those two. Do you see a lot of enemy damage dealers on the team? Only 1 or 2 barbs and you even know them and they are not that strong in your opinion, or you can handle them at least. Then change to the grab, to the new main hand, because you can engage the enemy's backline more easy. You will have more impact with that build. You can switch it as you need it. You can always play the grab build, definitely. It's a overall good build, but sometimes the Spartusk will help you more. Cool, so with this build we are getting kind of all-roundish, which could have some impact on our gem strategy that we are using. So I tried in this build, and that's what I play, so just my suggestion here, to think into those 4 categories: defense gems, damage gems, utility gems, and critical hit chance gems. And I classified some for you, which I find most interesting here. Defensive, the Frozen Heart, the Battle Guard, Spiteful Blood, and the Kill Sling, all very good, giving you a shield, damage reduction, some utility for not dying for the last primaries, and Kill Sling to just counter attacks to immobilize your enemies. Damage, pretty easy. The Fang is a very cool damage gem, Pain Clasp as well. The Void Spark to deal those huge hits on many enemies, and the Gloom Cask to do a heavy impact on one enemy with that primary attacks. Cool gems for those builds here, for those generalized builds. Utility, Jade as a good combination of damage and movement speed. And we have the Starfire with the stun, we have the Storm Vault with that crazy wall here that gives you a lot of hits and annoys the enemy. And then utility, I call it utility because it gives you attack speed. It's a good gem because it improves your chains, it improves your dashes. It's a cool gem to boost your whole build. Critical, then the Roiling with even a cool dot behind it, and the Cutthroat. Those are, I think, the only 3 critical hit chance gems. But yeah, what should you do? Which should you pick? So normally I say 2 defensive, 2 for damage, 2 to 3 for utility, and 1 to 2 for critical. This always depends. Do you want to do more damage? Do you want to survive longer? Utility gems can help you to survive if you're faster, if you stun the enemies. They cannot hit you that good. Classic, so gives you more defense. If you want to do damage, pick more critical. If you want to control the idol more and want to survive longer, pick more utility. You can, it's of course just a suggestion, but this is how I think in clusters to define which are the best gems I want to use here. One thing for the curses, because I'm moving in a different direction now here, we are coming back to a dash. We didn't have a dash for a long time. Of course, some of you are playing Leap build with the damage reduction, Eternal Attribute. There are nice builds out there with the Leap as well that are working good. For this, the grab is a dash as well, so you can go with a 6-piece Tortured. That Tortured is really cool because it can immobilize the enemy, which helps you to deal more primary attacks. So it's a nice thing to do to pin enemies down at the location you want, and it's damaged focus because of that. Nettled on the other side is a cool alternative. It is if you're staying more in the idle. You're having a lot of enemies around you with that passive damage. That AoE effect when you use a shield. We have a lot of shields. With the Warden we have a shield, with the Mountebanks we have a shield. There's your pet or anything. So a lot of shields that helps you to trigger the Nettled. It's a very nice counter attack combination with the counter attacks we already have. Chains, Berg Breaker, and that Nettled works good in combination. Okay, but the grab brings you another possibility. You can now close the distance to enemies very good. So if you are high resonance, if you are someone with a huge armor penetration, it could be really nice for you to look into more damage focused kind of builds here. So you have 2 switches you could do. First thing, you could switch to Harbinger instead. Going with that ambush functionality around the dash, getting a 10% cooldown reduction on the dash, and giving you the possibility of getting 30% damage and 20% I think crit chance again that gets refreshed when you kill something. So it's a nice thing to improve your damage and get a killer in the enemy's backline. That can work pretty good. This together or separated, because I think it's not stacking, with the Crewbusk Sneer, that gives you 20% crit chance as well. When the Harbinger is down, the Crewbusk kicks in, or they are working in parallel, whatever, but you're getting a permanent improvement of your crit hit, and when you close the distance with a grab dash, you can deal a huge amount of damage. So it's a nice combination. But to do that, what do we need to deal damage? We need armor penetration. So here's my little hack I promised you at the beginning. It's focused around our legendary items, because every time we are looking at getting the triple stat items with the triple attributes to giving us the highest combat rating and everything. So every one of us having 8 pieces with the triple stat. But look at here, I have a 5,300 armor penetration, 4,400 armor. I collected stuff. You have to see, both of those stats are very important for PvP and are built around your fortitude. Many of you know this. So we could switch all of our items versus 2 stat items focused on the fortitude stat. Fortitude strength, fortitude willpower, whatever. With the best possible additional attributes you can get, of course. And with that, we get a huge boost of our fortitude. It's a heavy increase on that stat. And with that, losing a few hundred combat rating definitely, but still are very good, we are gaining 300 armor and 300 armor penetration, which is a huge step. You know how expensive it is to get 300 additional armor penetration. So think about this hack. I think it can improve your PvP a lot. It will let you deal a lot more damage and more critical hits. Check it out, try it. For me it works pretty good. That combat rating decrease I have is not making a big difference, and when I crit hit I really hurt like hell, especially for hammer builds. This hurts like hell. You get 50 to 100k more damage from time to time. So try it out. In my opinion, it's a good thing. I'm not that deep into any technical, so if you have any concerns about the combat rating, tell me. I'm happy to discuss. Maybe we can even put this into the Discord channel. But I think, as I tested it, for me it works out pretty good. Try it out. Those stuff gets found pretty quick, because we all are getting a lot of legendaries here, and we're only looking for the best and big stuff. So that 2 stat ideally 2 stats, 2 attributes items will get shredded anyway. We will not use them. They will go into the waste bin. But if you save 8 slots on your treasure chest for that items, you can get into a crazy damage dealer build very fast. That are my 2 cents on the current PvP status, on the current builds we have. I know there are a lot of variation, and I love your variations. I love every variation you have. They are so cool, and I like how you have fun with it. I'm not the best PvP player, to be honest. I get murdered very often, but I like to play PvP, and I think this build here will help you, who are a very good PvP player, I know it, to dominate your games. So check it out, try it out, and hopefully you like it as much as I do. See you in the next Battleground match, and have fun. Bye bye.